We're here on a beautiful January day in Balboa Park in San Diego at the Inez Grant Parker Memorial Rose Garden on Park Boulevard. And this is a busy working day for a lot of wonderful volunteers who give their time and their expertise to do the maintenance on this garden. The volunteers include about 40 local San Diegans, many retired, who have the time to put in a morning, a week, something like that, usually on Tuesday and Thursday mornings, to maintain the garden during the growing season. They do things like take off the spent blooms and take off diseased leaves. They fertilize this garden. They do supplementary watering. This is a wonderful group, and this time of year they take their time to come out and prune these roses. They've been instructed as the kind of care, the kind of pruning that should be done, and they do a really good job, as evidenced by the wonderful season we just had this last year.
And would you mind showing the viewers how you actually prune a rose or prepare it for next season?
Sure. I'll do this plant, which is a hybrid tea called Sugar Moon, and it's up to about maybe 4 feet now. We're going to take it down to maybe 24 or 30 inches. Our goal is to remove all of the foliage, some of which is diseased, and to tell the rose where we want it to grow. And where we want it to grow is toward the outside of the plant. We don't want the inside to be crowded, which is what brings on disease or encourages it. So we're going to choose some places on each cane where we can bring it down to about 24, maybe 30 inches. And we're going to choose an outside bud, which means that's a bud that's going to be encouraged to grow to the outside, not to the inside. Wherever there is a leaf, or was a leaf, there is a bud, which is a growth bud. So I'm going to take off some foliage here so get a clear view of where an outside bud is. I took a leaf off here and here. They generally alternate on the sides of the stem. And let's see, this is kind of growing to the inside, but here's one to the outside at about the right height. So I'm going to take my clippers and I'm going to go about 1/4 of an inch above that bud with the high part of the cut toward the bud side and the low part of the cut behind it. If you know why you're doing that, it will help you remember to do it. And the reason is you don't want to leave, like, if you make a careless cut like that, 1 inch above the bud, you're going to have dieback because there's nothing to bring the nutrients of the plant up here, but a bud will do it. So this bud, we're going to prune pretty closely to this bud, leaving no more than 1/4 of an inch. It's a slanted cut, which takes more of the tissue behind the cut away. And then we're going to take all of these leaves off so that we're going to be ending up with a bare plant when we're done. And we may or may not leave that stem that long. It could be shortened a little bit more. An ideal cut leaves on a hybrid tea, leaves a long straight stem without any dog legs. This is what we call a dog leg. It's a joint where another stem has come out. In fact, right now I think I will go down a little bit lower, choose another outside bud that's below the dog leg, and make that cut close to the bud, but not so close as to damage it.
So basically, if I'm getting this right, what you're saying is when you cut these buds, you actually want the point of your cut pointing out away from the plant.
Yeah, but it's the reason that the cut is made that way is not because the cut tells it where to grow, but we've chosen a bud that shows the direction where the major growth is going to go. So we have ended up choosing a bud that is pointed in the way that we want the growth to go. Now in this case it's going to go that way because that's where the bud is. And then we take the tissue pretty much off behind that bud. I'm going to take this cane out all of the way because it's doesn't have good diameter. It's essentially in the place, right in the place of where a better cane is. So we're going to make a nice clean cut all the way to the bottom of that. Again, not leaving stubs, which is where dieback starts to happen. Another really important principle is that new canes produce better than old canes. And how you tell the difference is
and say that again, new what?
New canes, which are these stems, they grow better and are more productive than old canes. I see mostly new canes here on this plant, and the reason that I know that they're new is by looking at the smooth texture and the even color. This is kind of a purpley green on this. Sometimes it's green, sometimes it's purple, but smooth. It just looks new. It came out this year. Okay, I'm going to go to a bud that is pointing to the outside. I'm going to make that slanted cut slanted behind the bud, and then I'm going to take off the foliage because we want a bare plant by the time we're finished.
Thus the term cane.
Yeah.
So it looks like a a cane with thorns.
Yes, a cane is just a rose term for a stem, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's another beautiful new cane that came out this year. I can tell it's new by its enthusiastic growth that it had, and especially its smooth texture.
It's almost like a powder coating on it.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, and then sort of to the inside on that cane, here are a couple of weak stems. We're going to take those off cleanly all the way, leaving no stub. All right, in this area now we have two very good canes here, another excellent cane back here. Over here we've got another one that I can identify as new by its color, by its texture. And right next to it is one that is probably a year older, more marbled looking, just has a different look. And since this is growing in the same area with some good canes here, we're going to take out this one all the way, leaving no stub. And remove the foliage. Now we're getting to the point where you can kind of see what's been happening, or what we're going to leave. We've got on this plant 5 canes that came out this year, new productive canes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Of all of these canes, the best is this one because of its big diameter, and it has buds going down from the one we've selected, which will be the source of the new growth as things get going this spring. And we're likely to have new growth out of here. I think I'll reduce it just a little bit to keep it in proportion with the other stems. Gonna look around.
And now each bud, that basically comes back out as a branch.
That is
and
right.
For each branch, is there one rose, or is it? Does that change?
For each branch, on a hybrid tea, it's generally one rose, but it might be a spray of 3 or 4 or 5.
Depending on the variety of rose.
Yeah, but sometimes a rose doesn't know that we've called it a hybrid tea. It's got a lot of different genetic material in its background. So floribundas, which are supposed to have sprays, sometimes there's a floribunda in the genetic background of a plant, and you'll get sprays rather than hybrid teas. So pretty much we expect one rose to a stem on a hybrid tea, but you might get sprays too, and that's just a bonus. There's a little bit of stubbiness from old cuts down here at the base. I'm going to see if I can get these off with my clipper. It's dead material, and I'm going to find a lopper to get this stub off because I know I can't get that with my clippers.
Lopper is just a large cutting tool, correct?
It is.
Okay.
The only way you can do the job that's needed to be done on roses is to have not only your clippers, but there are two other tools that you need. One is a lopper and one is a saw. I'm going to take that off with a lopper because this will do the job. So you need the lopper and you need a saw to clean up the base of the plant and encourage a place where new growth can come out. And that one's done. On February 1st, there will be a group of San Diego rose lovers that'll get on a bus and go up to the Huntington Library in San Marino, California, to accept an award being given to this garden. The award is called the GROW Award. GROW stands for Great Rosarians of the World, and it was started, the awards were started about 15 years ago, where an outstanding rosarian, hybridizer, garden creator was honored and given an award. In the last 4 or 5 years, they've added a garden to give awards to, and the award is being admitted to the Huntington Hall of Fame, or maybe it's called the GROW Hall of Fame, the Great Rosarians of the World Hall of Fame. So this award will happen at 1 o'clock during the afternoon of February 1st, and it will probably be a plaque on the wall with other outstanding gardens. This garden has been given awards in the past, and it has received the AARS All-America Rose Selections Award. It's received awards from the World Federation of Roses. So this is just one more award that we can add to our bank.
It's amazing. We at San Diego appreciate it, you know, but it's nice that they know where all of this actually originated and the hard work and dedication you guys have put in. And it is a representation of San Diego and your love for flowers.
Right.
Which I personally am very thankful for.
There have been rose gardens in Balboa Park before this one. I'm not an expert on the history of those. I know that there was one along 6th Avenue. There was one sort of under the big Moreton Bay fig. Where's that? Not too far from here. They've come and gone depending on the kind of care they've gotten. This one was originated in the mind of Dick Streeper, who was president of the San Diego Rose Society in 1969. And during his presidency, he asked the question, why does San Diego not have, if this is the best place in the country to grow roses, why don't we have a great rose garden? So between 1969 and 1974, he and some contacts from the City Council and the Balboa Park Committee worked on finding a place, finding a funding, and so forth. And roses were donated from companies like Jackson and Perkins and Weeks Roses and many other companies. They were donated and they were canned up until the hardscape was ready. The Parker Foundation, for whom the garden was named, Inez Parker, but the Parker Foundation is the name of this garden. And the Parker Foundation came up with half of the funds, and the city came up with the other half of the funds to build the garden. And it was finished in 1974, dedicated in 1975. And then in the 90s, there was an additional part put on the garden. It now has 1,600 roses. The additional part,
and that's this area over here,
is
correct?
The area, yeah, this central area with this central structure was a half circle up until this time in the 90s, when a lot of dirt was brought from building skyscrapers in San Diego and digging the basements. That was dumped in Florida Canyon, making this area large enough to make these circles complete. And at that time, it was increased to the 1,600 roses that it has now.